was beyond belief that children in Flint, Michigan, in the United States of America in the year 2016 are being poisoned. I believe the governor of this state should understand that his dereliction of duty was irresponsible. He should resign.
I know the state of Michigan has a rainy day fund for emergencies. What is more important than the health and well-being of the people, particularly children? It is raining lead in Flint, and the state is derelict in not coming forward with the money that is required.
Senator Sanders, would President Sanders fire the head of the EPA?
President Sanders would fire anybody who knew about what was happening and did not act appropriately. And President Sanders would make the point that how does it happen in the wealthiest country in the history of the world? What are our priorities when, among others, Republicans today are fighting for hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks for the wealthiest people? How did we have so much money available to go to war in Iraq and spend trillions of dollars, but somehow not have enough money, not just for Flint? Secretary is right. There are communities all over this country. It's not just infrastructure, it is education. Detroit's public school system is collapsing.
Thank you, Senator.
Anderson, the bottom line is, and what my campaign is changing our national priorities. We need a government that works for all of us,
Thank you,
not
sir.
just wealthy campaign contributors.
We just had the best year that the auto industry has had in a long time. I voted to save the auto industry. He voted against the money that ended up saving the auto industry. I think that is a pretty big difference.
Well, if you are talking about the Wall Street bailout, where some of your friends destroyed this economy,
you know,
excuse me, I'm talking.
Let him respond.
If you're going to talk, tell the whole story, Senator
Let
Sanders.
me tell my story, you tell yours.
I will.
Your story is for voting for every disastrous trade agreement and voting for corporate America.
The Bush administration negotiated the deal. Were there things in it that I didn't like? Would I have done it differently? Absolutely. But was the auto bailout money in it? The $350 billion that was needed to begin the restructuring of the auto industry? Yes, it was. So when I talk about Senator Sanders being a one-issue candidate, I mean very clearly, you have to make hard choices when you're in positions of responsibility. The two senators from Michigan stood on the floor and said, we have to get this money released. I went with them, and I went with Barack Obama. You did not. If everybody had voted the way he did, I believe the auto industry would have collapsed, taking 4 million jobs with it.
One of us has a super PAC. One of us has raised $15 million from Wall Street for that super PAC. One of us has given speeches on Wall Street for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, I kind of think if you get paid a couple of $100,000 for a speech, must be a great speech. I think we should release it and let the American people see what that transcript was.
And I have said, and I will say again, I'll be happy to release anything I have as long as everybody else does too. Because what really is behind that question, Republicans and Democrats, is whether I can stand up to Wall Street. Well, let's have some facts instead of some rhetoric for a change. I went to Wall Street when I was a United States Senator. I told them that they were wrecking the economy. I asked for a moratorium on foreclosures. I asked that we do more to try to prevent what I worried was going to happen. I also called for closing loopholes, including the carried interest loophole. I also called for changes in CEO pay. I have a record. And you know what? If you were going to be in some way distrusted or dismissed about whether you can take on Wall Street if you ever took money, President Obama took more money from Wall Street in the 2008 campaign than anybody ever had. And when it came time to stand up to Wall Street, he passed and signed the toughest regulations since the Great
Senator Sanders, let me just follow up. You'll be able to follow up.
Regulations.
Senator Sanders, just yesterday, in fact, you said Just, I believe it was yesterday, you said not only her speech must have been a fantastic speech, it must have been a Shakespearean speech for that amount of money. Is her answer enough for you that she'll release it when all the Republicans and Democrats release it?
Everybody else to release it. Well, I'm your Democratic opponent. I release it. Here it is. There ain't nothing. I don't give speeches to Wall Street.
Senator Sanders, you've been very tough lately. Last week, you said this about Secretary Clinton, quote, "Just as I believe you can't take on Wall Street while taking their money, I don't believe you can take on climate change effectively while taking money from those who would profit off the destruction of the planet." Are you suggesting that she's in the pocket of the fossil fuel industry?
No, what I am suggesting is that we have a corrupt campaign finance system. And instead of standing up to that finance system, Secretary Clinton has a super PAC, which is raising huge amounts of, I hate to say the word huge, every time I say huge, it means a lot of money from Wall Street and from the fossil fuel industry. I am doing it a different way. I have 5 million individual contributors who have gone to BernieSanders.com to make a $27 contribution.
Thank you,
I don't take money from the fossil fuel industry.
In 1996, you used the term super predators to describe some young kids. Some feel like it was racial code. Was it? And were you wrong to use that term?
Well, I was speaking about drug cartels and criminal activity that was very concerning to folks across the country. I think it was a poor choice of words. I never used it before. I haven't used it since. I would not use it again. Because my whole life, to go back to what I was saying to Mr. McGee, is, really, ever since I went to work for the Children's Defense Fund, is to try to figure out ways to even the odds for people that are left out and left behind. And I know very well that we have too many kids in our country right now who are living in poverty, who are going to schools like the ones in Detroit that have mold and rodents in them. I saw that in South Carolina. It's unfortunately across America. So what we've got to do is provide more opportunities earlier in the lives of every child.
I was with some young people active in the Black Lives Matter movement. Young lady comes up to me and she says, "You don't understand what police do in certain black communities. You don't understand the degree to which we are terrorized." And I'm not just talking about the horrible shootings that we have seen, which have got to end, and we've got to hold police officers accountable. I'm just talking about everyday activities where police officers are bullying people. So to answer your question, I would say, and I think it's similar to what the Secretary said, when you're white, you don't know what it's like to be living in a ghetto. You don't know what it's like to be poor. You don't know what it's like to be hassled when you walk down the street or you get dragged out of a car. And I believe that as a nation in the year 2016, we must be firm in making it clear we will end institutional racism and reform a broken criminal justice system. I am very proud to be Jewish, and being Jewish is so much of what I am. Look, my father's family was wiped out by Hitler in the Holocaust. I know about what crazy and radical and extremist politics mean. I learned that lesson as a tiny, tiny child when my mother would take me shopping and we would see people working in stores who had numbers on their arms because they were in Hitler's concentration camp. I am very proud of being Jewish, and that is an essential part of who I am as a human being. I believe morally and ethically, we do not have a right to turn our backs on children in Flint, Michigan who are being poisoned, or veterans who are sleeping out on the street. And what I believe as the father of 7 beautiful grandchildren, I want you to worry about my grandchildren, and I promise you I will worry about your family. We are in this together.
I have said many times that, I am a praying person, and if I hadn't been, during the time I was in the White House, I would have become one, because it's very hard to imagine living under that kind of pressure without being able to fall back on prayer and on my faith. So I do pray for people in authority. I try to think about what they're going through, even when I disagree with them, trying to find some common ground, some common understanding that perhaps can make me more empathetic I don't always succeed, I will tell you that. So I pray on a pretty regular basis during the day because I need that strength and I need that support. The last time I checked, as of last night, Donald Trump had received 3.6 million votes, which is a good number. And there's only one candidate in either party who has more votes than him, and that's me. And I am building a broad, diverse coalition across our country. I am very excited by the support we're receiving. And I have said, and I will repeat here, I think that Donald Trump's bigotry, his bullying, his bluster are not going to wear well on the American people.
Talk about being tough on Wall Street, and this really galls me and the American people. Recently, Goldman Sachs, among many other major financial institutions on Wall Street, as you know, reached a settlement with the federal government for $5 billion because they were selling worthless packages of subprime mortgages. $5 billion settlement. You know how many people, executives on Wall Street, have gone to jail? If you're a kid caught with marijuana in Michigan, you get a police record. If you're an executive on Wall Street that destroys the American economy, pay a $5 billion fine, no police record. If I'm elected president, we're going to bring justice back to a broken criminal justice system.